Welcome everybody to Fides Wealth Strategies Group Financial Moment with Dr. Chris Rand.
And Mr. Mark Gallo.
And there we go today. Today we're going to talk about probably an ever-increasing problem around long-term care. I think that's a big one.
Why do you say ever-increasing, Mark?
Well, I think as the baby boomers continue to age, it becomes more and more of an issue.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those near and dear areas to my heart. I know that I have worked with so many people over the last 20, almost 30 years around long-term care, and I've just watched the issues become more and more on this. And I can tell you the insurance options become less and less. So it is scary. It is something that I think we need to stay involved with and really make certain that our clients are financially free enough to be able to have control over their life.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ways I have found to be able to do that is through things like long-term care insurance and different hybrids of long-term care insurance that I think are applicable. When we talk about long-term care, I think the easiest thing to talk about is really it's not, long-term care is never involved on a situation where you break an arm or you even honestly break a hip. Those things are really what I consider to be short-term.
Short-term care?
Yeah, short-term care, skilled care, those type of things are really considered to be a shorter duration. Long-term care, I mean, the easy one to bring out is things like Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Right. That's really, when you think about long term, you're thinking really long. The average stay in a nursing home is about 3 years. The stats I've heard is the average stay in a home health environment closer to 5. You know, and at the tune of $70,000 to $90,000 a year, that's a huge problem.
Yeah, well, it depends on where you live too, and what the costs are going to
Absolutely.
be. And but to your point, I mean, they just keep getting more expensive, and and I think the biggest shock that people find out that are unaware of or haven't done long-term care planning is they think or assume that something must cover it.
Yeah.
Medicare must pay for it. My health insurance must pay. Someone must pay for it.
Right. When you have such a big issue, you would hope, right?
Yeah.
But more and more people are discovering that there's just not a lot out there to help an individual with means be able to take care of it.
Yeah, and that's a good point with means, because if you don't have assets at a certain point, there are government programs that are designed to help cover those costs.
Right.
But where Medicare or your health insurance may cover a short period.
Yeah, 21.
Like you were
days.
talking about that broken hip or rehab type facility type issue. It's just not designed to pay for a prolonged stay, either at home or in a nursing facility.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, when you talk about things like long-term care and long-term care insurance, really, some of the bigger triggers are when you need human assistance or constant supervision in performing the 6 activities of daily living. Those are things like bathing, eating, dressing, toileting, maintaining continence, or being able to get up and down, right?
Yeah, transferring.
Yeah. And so those are really big factors. And now most policies get triggered when you need human assistance or constant supervision in 2 of those 6.
Or the
Cognitive impairment.
right?
Yeah, cognitive impairment. And it's important to understand that means it doesn't fall into the category of a situation where you have fallen or broken a hip.
Yeah.
So important to keep that kind of thing in mind. Now, when you look at a cost associated with $70,000 to $90,000, most people don't just have a big puddle of cash sitting aside. Definitely in an after-tax position.
Yeah.
So you don't even think about the tax consequences associated with having to liquidate $90,000 out of an IRA to be able to pay for long-term care.
Yeah, if you got to pull $90,000 out of an IRA, you got to pull well more than $90,000 in order to afford to net out $90,000.
Yeah, so it is a big expense that people just really don't think about, and they don't think it's going to happen to them. And that's the thing that's crazy is, I mean, we're seeing it more and more with folks.
Well, I think an important thing, though, Mark, to mention is just, from a industry standpoint, over the last 5 to maybe 10 years, the insurance marketplace has really shrunk.
Yeah.
There are a lot less insurers providing traditional long-term care. There's a couple that I can think of that provide, what would you refer to the non-traditional ones?
Like a hybrid
type policy, right? It's a life insurance policy with a long-term care rider or some sort of an attachment there.
I do like those a lot because they do have more of a guarantee on premium. Guarantee of premium is important to talk about because at the end of the day, if you're 50 years of age buying long-term care insurance, I'm not going to say that you're going to have a rate increase, but I would say that the likelihood is extremely high.
And you look over the last decade, so many announcements of rate increases on existing traditional long-term care policies. The reality is people are living longer. The cost, the insurance industry did just not do a good job of pricing.
I remember in the late 90s they were
policies.
giving rate decreases.
Yeah.
I remember that was crazy. So that
Yeah.
tells you they just have no understanding of the scope of problem back then.
Back then, they do now.
I think they do now, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have a situation where, but if you get into one of these hybrid policies, a lot of times they'll guarantee the premium not to go up, which is really a nice feature for somebody that is, earlier in life getting long-term care.
Yeah, or planning on living on a fixed budget, I guess.
Exactly. So that's important to get into. One of the things you can always reach out to us is we'll get you a shopper's guide if this is something you're ever looking at getting involved with. And that's produced by a completely unbiased group, the National Association.
The Shopper's Guide to Long-Term Care.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
But we also think that every financial planning client should be planning for long-term care. Planning for long-term care does not necessarily mean buying insurance.
Correct,
right?
yeah.
It's what happens if you get to a point where you need long-term care. You have a long-term care stay.
What's our business
what's
plan?
the strategy? What's the business? How are you going to pay for it? Are you going to have insurance to pay for some? Are you going to have insurance to pay for all? Are you going to use cash that you've set aside, some assets? What's the? How are you going to do that?
Yeah, no, it's always important. Have a plan, stick to it. You got to go that way. Talk about other things we have to look at. Mm-hmm. Probably even less fun thing to talk about: property casualty insurance.
Yeah.
Property casualty insurance, homeowners policies, auto.
Excess liability.
Yeah, excess liability. I love umbrella policies. We're here in San Diego, so we don't have to worry too much about umbrellas policies, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it never rains here.
Yeah, that's not what an umbrella policy is, Mark.
No? Okay.
No, maybe you want to go into that a little bit.
Yeah, no, an umbrella policy is an excess liability. So a lot of times it's something that will sit on top of your existing auto insurance policy and cover for the things that your auto insurance policy kind of taps out. So if you're driving your $30,000 vehicle and you hit a $150,000 Maserati, your insurance company is probably
and you get sued for the person that got sued you for that.
Yeah.
That would be then in place to cover that liability.
Yeah.
Above and beyond that, you probably have like a $50,000, $100,000. But actually, if you got excess liability, you probably have a $250,000 liability policy.
Yeah.
And then it would cover above and beyond that point.
Yeah, those are important.
Same thing with your homeowner's insurance. If somebody slips and falls on your property and you get sued, the excess liability policy is there to help protect against that.
Always something, it's a nice wrapper to put on that a lot of people don't think about, and I would say it's pretty cost effective for the amount of coverage you get.
As long as you don't have a 16-year-old driver,
Yeah,
I would say that's
you got
a couple. I know we're hitting home a little bit close to it, and that is something to be cognizant of when you talk to your auto insurance agent. They'll let you know when you have teenage drivers in the home, for probably obvious reasons, the excess liability policy is a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's important that you have the right coverages, the right deductibles. I can't tell you the amount of people when I sit down and talk with them about their about their insurance package. A lot of times they'll still have a $50 deductible on their auto.
Yeah.
And it's like, listen, you're working with us, you're paying more in coffee a month than your deductible. So understand, get the right deductible amount. Maybe take it up to a $500 or $1,000 if you have the financial means to cover that.
And that's just it. It should be what you can afford to pay for.
Right.
Maybe you could only afford $50 when you were in college.
Yeah. No.
But now, when you're successful in life and you have met with your financial advisor who has set up an emergency reserve for you, and you have all those appropriate things in place, you don't want to spend $1,000 if you're in an auto accident.
No.
But you probably could afford it.
You probably, yeah.
The premium's less expensive on that policy, and that frees up some premium dollars to be spent on maybe something like excess liability policy.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Well, that's your financial moment with Fides Wealth Strategies Group. We again reach out and ask us any questions if you have any.